Hey everyone, how's it going? Juan Dhas here, and welcome back to this week's lesson video. And this week I wanted to tackle a really important topic that I think is fundamental, and it's in the title, chord tone fundamentals. And I think for any improviser, and even if you're a composer who's looking to write melodies, this is a really important and vital step in learning to understand how to play through a tune. For starters, I always mention to students one of the things that really is the hallmark of someone who's a great improviser is that even if there's no accompaniment, you can still hear the tune, and you can still hear the form, and you can still hear that they're playing that harmony, and you can still, just by the changes, tell what tune they were playing. In this case, I was playing Along Came Betty, which is a beautiful tune, one of my favorites actually to play. So this usually tends to puzzle people when they first get into it because they start playing arpeggios, or they're told, yeah, just learn your arpeggios and learn how to play them all over the neck. But I find even that process alone can sometimes be a little too intimidating for someone just diving into this stuff for the first time. At least it was for me when I first was given that piece of advice. And rather naively, I thought I could learn all my arpeggios very quickly, and I realized that was not the case. It's a long-term goal. So, getting into chord tones, why are they so fundamental? Well, for one, if you're playing by yourself, people can hear what you're doing. People can hear the form, people can hear the changes, people can hear the song, which is so vital, it's so important. I think it's something that sometimes, unfortunately, gets lost in today's environment. Two, you're not having to lean on the band as much to be your harmonic playground, and this is especially useful for guitar players who don't have to lean on a piano player, or any instrumentalist who doesn't have to lean on another comping instrument to outline the harmony for them. You can do that yourself. It gives you agency, it gives you independence. And lastly, that actually translates to just, because of your independence, you're now able to interact a little more freely. Because you have the tune in your head, and because you've been working on how to clearly outline this, you can move on your own and take your own adventures in a piece, or in a standard, or in a tune, or whatever the improvising context may be. But you can also comment on the harmony, and you can come back to earth, so to speak, if you get a little too far. So, great uses, all around it's a great concept, and if you're even getting into the basics of jazz language, it's such an imperative part of understanding the language, because most of that language is based on forget the sirens in the back. It's just imperative to understanding how to play harmony, period. Even outlining something as simple as a 2-5-1 requires an understanding of chord tones. Even if it's a piece of language, if I just play the triads, right? That's actually a very nice little melody. But I wasn't doing anything particularly special other than chord tones. So, let's get into it. How can you work on incorporating this into your playing if you're not used to it? And I'm going to kind of do this in stages for some more beginners, beginning improvisers, or people who are just starting the journey. Forgive the dog in the background. And also people who might be, make that dogs, people who are a little further in their journey, and how they can probably give themselves a bit more of an intense workout for chord tones and making sure you really know your stuff. So as I mentioned earlier, arpeggios seem to be the be-all, end-all, and sometimes for people who are relatively advanced and get asked this question, even I've suggested it. Learn your triads, learn your seventh chords, learn your arpeggios, learn your chords, period, and you'll have all the tools you need. But usually a beginning improviser needs a little more guidance. And when it comes to chord tones, what is it that you can do that kind of really helps that sink into your head, and that's understanding the sound. So I'm going to use an easier or slightly easier tune, a little more tonal tune. I'm going to use All the Things You Are, because it's got very clear key centers. So what I would suggest students do at first is just familiarize yourselves with 1, 3, 5. Specifically, not just 1, but 3 and 5. Because those are your most stable. 5 will end up being your most stable chord tone. I mentioned this in another video, I think a few years ago. I think one of my first lessons that I did here on YouTube. 3 will indicate the tonality of what you're playing, which is vital, because all too often I see the case is sometimes someone plays a scale and on top of a chord, but they're kind of meandering through it. They're not very clear, and as such, even though they're playing the correct scale with the correct chord, the sound feels quite nebulous and it doesn't feel as clear. So, first off, start extremely basic, and don't be afraid of doing this. Play thirds through the form. I'm just going to play the bass line for reference. That's just through the first A, then... Oh, sorry, it goes to minor. Right? And so on and so forth through the tune. You can do the same thing with the fifths. That's a little easier on guitar because it's pretty much just parallel movement. Then what I would suggest is maybe alternate between the two. So third, fifth, third, fifth, third, fifth, third, fifth. Sorry, then, yeah, we'll just treat this as a big 5 chord. Third, fifth. And you see, that actually gives you like a little bit of a melody, and this is what the great thing about chord tones is. You don't actually need a lot to make something sound good. You can just take, for example, I can just take that first A of All the Things You Are. Very simple phrasing. I'm not really doing too much, but it's bringing out the harmony of the tune, and you can still hear that. So my next step would be begin to take arpeggios, and on guitar it's a little bit interesting. I remember the first time someone told me this, I was trying to voice lead these huge arpeggios, these huge 2-octave arpeggios. So if I would do the same thing on All the Things You Are, and not even voice lead them, I would just try play them. And then go to E flat. Which is a great exercise, but usually even that alone is a very big jump, so I'd say take little bite-sized chunks. Take your little triad shapes, right? Take 3 or 4 note cells and begin to use those. If you need a triad workout, I'm going to put the card up here. I uploaded a triad workout video that will really cover all your bases, so please do check it out. Now, I would take that through All the Things You Are. So let's just say we're going to start with second inversion F minor, right? So then I would go to D flat, let's say, or I can even do, hey, that's kind of cool, G from the phone, nice. So, or I could even go up here, right? So then I can take these, or I can go in reverse. Let's say I'm going to start from here, but just to break the pattern, I'm going to jump, and then voice lead. So F minor, B flat minor, E flat, A flat, D flat, And then here I'm gonna actually play the diminished, D diminished, D diminished, G major, and C. You can voice lead your triads through that, but then play them separately. If you want to make it a little more even, turn them into 4-note cells. Or if you want to do a little more of a linear sequence. See what I mean? You're starting to move it through the changes and you're starting to voice lead them. If you want to work with the bigger arpeggios, take them out of time. Here I was still kind of implying time. Very slow, but still implied. 2, 3, 4, right? You can take it out of time and really see if you can connect these shapes. So F minor, right? B flat minor. Use whichever fingering works for you and try connect them as best as you can. Or actually, I could have just done that. Then I can go to E flat. Right? Then from here, D diminished. Sorry. Shoot. Then go to G major. C minor. F minor, B flat. You see, I'm kind of speeding through this just so you get an idea. A diminished. And you can kind of come up with these little connecting phrases if that's too easy. Basically, essentially what I'm doing is I'm creating a progression of sorts. I'm trying to really pare this down to the simplest idea possible. First, can I just play one chord tone, or can I see it on the fretboard with an arpeggio? And I'm just using this because the arpeggio is the conventional source of wisdom for this kind of stuff. So, can I play the chord tone? Can I access the third or the fifth, and do I know what I'm playing? If not, that is a good starting point to work on, and it's a good baseline. Don't be ashamed of that. Second, okay, can I take 3 or 4 note cells and just access them? Even if it's something as simple as, okay, here's an F minor chord, here's B flat, here's E flat, A flat, D flat, D diminished, G, C. It's always the diminished chords for me. Right, can I access that material, right? Then can I voice lead that material? Then once you're familiar with little tiny fragments of cells, can you expand this out to something much larger? And then the same can then be applied to, well, 7th chord arpeggios. However, I would suggest starting with triads first just because the sound is so direct and so useful that you'll get to understanding the concept sooner or later. And this way I'm practicing it just goes to show that you can take the context of a tune and therefore it won't be as dull to get through this. Sometimes the study of arpeggios or the study of chord tones can be a little tedious, but use the framework of a tune to help make that a little bit more of an enjoyable experience. And in the process, you also learn some repertoire. So I hope this lesson was useful for you guys. I've got a really cool one coming up next week on percussive playing and kind of percussive elements that you can use. I'm going to put the card to the video that inspired that because I had a lot of people asking about that, so I'll be tackling that next week. I'm going to jump onto Patreon now and talk a little bit more about just chord tones. So if you'd like to join me over there, please do. You're more than welcome. I'm uploading stuff every week, and every month I have 1 or 2 backing tracks as well for the people that want to be there, along with a couple of other things. So in short, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care, guys.